What would you do if the love you found was the one the world refused to accept? Carol tells the story of two women whose quiet, undeniable connection turns into a love that society sees as forbidden. Set in the conservative 1950s, their relationship unfolds with a mix of passion, fear, and longing. A love that's as beautiful as it is dangerous. But beyond the romance, Carol is a story of courage, self-discovery, and the painful cost of being true to your heart. The opening credits show the movie's title slowly appearing and then fading away, like the softest notes of a song. It rises and vanishes, fleeting and delicate, but behind it, an unbroken, rigid chain remains. This chain stands still, solid and unmoving, a quiet but powerful symbol of the world these characters are trapped in. It represents the harsh constraints of their reality, the rigid social norms, the unyielding expectations, and the suffocating roles they're forced to play. The contrast between the fading title and the unbreakable chain captures the tension at the heart of the story. The fragility of desire against the weight of convention, the softness of love against the harshness of a world unwilling to bend. This symbolism sets the stage for everything that follows, a story of longing, restraint, and the quiet fight for freedom. Because of the forbidden nature of Carol and Therese's relationship, their love can never be loud or obvious. It has to exist in whispers and glances, in gestures that say everything without saying a word. In the 1950s world they live in, their feelings are considered unspeakable, even dangerous. Carol's past indiscretions are only ever talked about in coded language, and their romance carries that same weight of secrecy. One of the most striking things Carol shows us is how words can be deceptive. They don't always tell the truth. Society at the time was built on strict, rigid ideas of morality, ethics, and behavior. There were rules about gender, about relationships, about the kind of love you were allowed to have, and those rules were enforced through language. The men in Carol and Therese's lives are free to speak their wants and desires openly, without fear. But for Carol and Therese, their love has to live in the spaces between words, in stolen glances, quiet touches, and the things they can't say out loud. That's where the film's visual storytelling becomes so powerful. Every lingering look, every subtle shift in body language, every carefully framed shot carries an emotion that words simply can't capture. It's in the way Carol's eyes soften when she looks at Therese, or how Therese's entire face lights up with curiosity and admiration when she watches Carol. It's in the pauses between their words, the gentle touches that almost happen but don't, the tension and longing that fill the space between them. Through this unspoken language, Carol captures a love that's both undeniable and impossible. A love that's quiet but no less revolutionary. In a world where they're not allowed to say what they feel, their emotions spill out in glances and gestures, the way their voices soften when they say each other's names. The film makes you feel the weight of every unsaid word and every risk they take just by being near each other. This quietness is what makes their love feel so real and so powerful. It's not loud or dramatic, but it's brave. It exists in stolen moments and hidden smiles, in the way they see each other when no one else truly does. And in that silence, their love speaks louder than words ever could. When we first meet Therese, it's clear that her life feels like it's being controlled by everyone around her. From the forced cheerfulness at her job to the shallow holiday greetings from her department store bosses, it all feels so robotic. Even her relationship seems like something she's just supposed to follow. Her boyfriend uses the same old sweet talk and pressures her to follow a traditional path toward marriage. But Therese doesn't really seem to fit into any of it, and it's something we feel rather than hear through the way the movie shows her world. Take the moment when Therese meets Carol. She's working in a toy store, and the way the camera frames her behind the counter makes it look like she's just another doll for sale. She's stuck there, like she's part of the display, trapped behind expectations. But then, in a small but important moment, we learn that Therese actually prefers train sets over dolls, something that shows us she's always felt different, even if she hasn't known how to express it. The train also becomes a powerful symbol of the connection between Carol and Therese, two women who seem like they're from completely different worlds. Carol, with her elegant fur coat, perfectly styled hair, and old-school grace, carries an air of sophistication that feels like it belongs to a different time. Even her habits, like smoking without a second thought in places where it's no longer allowed, show how out of step she can seem with the changing world around her. She's polished, poised, and composed. She is the woman who's learned how to maintain appearances, even when her life is quietly falling apart. Therese, on the other hand, is younger and still figuring out who she is. She dresses in a way that feels fresh and modern, reflecting her more experimental, uncertain nature. She's drawn to new experiences and possibilities, like when she suggests an electronic toy train as a Christmas gift for Carol's daughter instead of a traditional doll. Train set also symbolizes the bridge between the past and the present, and shows us how, even in their differences, there's hope for the future. But that's exactly what makes their relationship so special. Just like the train, their love becomes a bridge between the past and the future. Carol represents a life shaped by duty, appearances, and the quiet sacrifices expected of women in her time. Therese represents a newer world, one still finding its voice, filled with the promise of possibility and freedom. And when their paths cross, it creates something unexpected, a brief, intense connection that changes both of them in ways neither of them saw coming. The train, always moving forward, becomes a perfect metaphor for their relationship, a journey with an uncertain destination, but one that pushes them towards something new and brave. Just like the train moves along its tracks, Carol and Therese are carried by forces bigger than themselves: desire, fear, hope, all pulling them towards something they can't fully control or predict. Their love story unfolds like a journey into the unknown, where every step brings both excitement and risk. And even if their time together is temporary, the impact they leave on each other is lasting. It shapes them, changes them, and gives them the courage to be more honest with themselves. It's a reminder that sometimes the most important connections come from the most unexpected places, and even the briefest encounters can leave a mark that lasts forever. Their relationship also plays out in the colours they wear, a visual language that quietly tells their story. When they first meet, their connection is framed by festive, almost playful shades of red and green. Therese, still reserved and unsure of her place in the world, wears calm, grounded greens that reflect her quiet, observant nature. Carol, by contrast, steps into Therese's life like a force of nature, often dressed in bold, striking red, a colour that matches her confident, magnetic presence. But as their bond deepens, something beautiful happens. The colours start to shift and blend between them. Therese begins to show hints of red, her character growing bolder, more expressive under Carol's influence. Carol, in turn, softens, adopting more of the green that reflects the calm and warmth she finds with Therese. Through this subtle exchange of colour, the film shows how they change each other, how love shapes them, how it brings out parts of themselves they hadn't fully embraced before. It's a quiet transformation, but one that speaks volumes without ever needing words. The one colour that never fades from Carol is brown, a constant reminder of society's grip and the judgment surrounding them. It's not just a fashion choice, it's a powerful symbol of control and conformity. Throughout the film, brown dominates the spaces they move through: cold, institutional settings and carefully arranged domestic environments. These places feel heavy and suffocating, as if the characters are being boxed in by a rigid society that refuses to accept their love. This oppressive presence isn't just in the spaces, it's in the people enforcing these rules. Time and time again, Carol and Therese's love is interrupted and threatened by figures of authority, most often men dressed in shades of brown and beige. These men represent the pressure to conform and the belief that their love is something forbidden, something wrong. Even Carol herself is tied to this world early on. When we first meet her, she's wrapped in an elegant brown fur coat, visually connecting her to this traditional controlled life. But as her relationship with Therese deepens, we see Carol slowly shedding that brown for brighter colors like yellow, green, and red, a sign of her personal liberation and growing closeness to Therese. Still, when the pressure of her divorce and custody battle becomes too much, the brown returns, draping her once again in the expectations she can't easily escape. In this way, brown becomes a constant visual reminder of the forces trying to keep them apart. It makes every quiet, colourful moment between Carol and Therese feel even more precious, a spark of warmth against a world determined to keep them in the dark. The bond between Carol and Therese is something that goes beyond words. It's a connection that can't be easily put into sentences or neatly packaged into society's understanding of love. Instead, the film shows us their intimacy through the way they're framed, the way the camera positions them in the scenes. And often, it's through windows and reflections that we feel the weight of their love or their distance. These translucent barriers, the glass that comes between them, reflect their surroundings. The streets, the passing cars, the buildings creating this sense that their love, while so powerful, is constantly framed by the world's judgment. It's like a constant reminder of the cultural expectations they're fighting against. But even though their love can't always be spoken out loud, it's felt in every glance, every touch, every quiet moment between them. The film makes sure of that, using subtle but powerful imagery to show us what words can't. One of the most intimate ways we see this is through Therese's photography. The photos she takes of Carol are more than just snapshots. They feel like love letters without words. Through her camera, Therese captures something deeper, something real. It's as if she's trying to preserve the essence of Carol, the parts of her that no one else seems to see. And in a world that constantly tries to pull them apart, those photos become a way for Therese to hold on to their connection, even when everything else feels uncertain. When she looks through that lens, it's not just about taking pictures, it's about holding on to something true, something the world keeps trying to take away from her. Then, when the world comes crashing down on them, when Carol and Therese are torn apart by the weight of societal expectations and the harsh reality of their situation, it seems like Therese loses a part of herself. She lets go of photography, the passion that once gave her joy, that connected her to Carol in ways words never could. The camera, which had once been her means of expression, is now replaced by a typewriter as she finds herself typing words in an office, a far cry from the woman she used to be. This shift in her life isn't just a change in occupation, it's a surrender to the pressures around her. Therese is no longer capturing fleeting moments through a lens. Instead, she's conforming to the expectations of a world that demands she play a role she never chose. She's bending to the roles society has set for her, the roles that tell her who she should be, what she should do, and what she should desire. Her love for Carol, her photography, and the passion that once defined her seem to fade into the background as she becomes more and more entangled in a life that's not truly hers. This shift isn't just about her career change, it's about the loss of her identity. It's about the heartbreak that comes with trying to fit into a world that doesn't want to let her be who she truly is. Her photography, the one thing that allowed her to communicate her love for Carol, is gone. She's now boxed in, restrained, just like the world around her. Carol gave her the courage to see beyond societal constraints, but now, without her, Therese is lost in that sea of expectations. And the words, "I love you," the words that are supposed to signify everything in a love story, but never told. Even when Carol says them, they feel out of place, interrupted by the cruel reality of their situation. The words are drowned out, just as their love is drowned out by the brown clouds of judgment and disapproval that hover over them. It's a love that can't fully exist in the open, a love that has to hide behind words that don't quite capture what they feel for each other. This moment, this painful separation, underscores the tragedy of their situation. It's not just about their love being unspoken, it's about how the world around them refuses to accept it. The brown is everywhere, in the clothing, in the authority figures, in the spaces they occupy, reminding us that no matter how deep their love runs, there's always something pushing them back into the shadows. When Therese finally returns to Carol, words are no longer needed. Their story, which started with a single glance across a room, comes full circle in a way that's almost unspoken. The world they've been fighting against, the societal rules, the pressure, the judgment starts to fade away. It's like everything that's been keeping them apart loses its hold, and suddenly, the chaos and uncertainty of their lives slow down, almost to a stop. In that quiet moment, they're frozen, but in the best way. Their connection, which had always been complicated by words and the world around them, is now just pure and simple. It's in the way they look at each other, how their eyes speak volumes. In this silent exchange, everything is understood. Their love isn't just a feeling anymore, it's a truth that doesn't need to be explained or validated by anyone else. In that one shared look, their entire relationship is communicated, no words necessary. It's a moment of clarity, a pause in time where everything else disappears, and all that's left is the connection they've fought so hard to keep. Love, in its simplest and most honest form, is captured not in grand speeches or dramatic gestures, but in the quiet moments between two people who truly see each other. In the end, Carol is a story of resilience, of finding love in a world that isn't always ready to accept it, and holding on to that love, even when everything else falls apart.